Procrastination is alive and well. I've had 3 episodes ready to record for nearly a week, and yesterday I spent more than an hour starting and stopping this exact recording. But what was stopping me? What was keeping me from getting engaged? It was video. And I nearly quit the podcast altogether because I've been working so much and creating content that I just couldn't stand to see myself one more time on video. It had nothing to do with the content. It had more to do with me getting in the way of me. So Jiminy Cricket was sitting on my left shoulder and he asked me, "What's the real block holding you back?" Well, that's where we're going to start today's episode. Stay tuned. Today we are talking about the weirdest aphasia strategy that actually works. I think of it as the 3-second rule. Why does it matter about pausing for 3 seconds? And I'll explain what this means and how to do it for yourself. But when we pause, when we're communicating with a person who has aphasia, it changes the whole relationship dynamic. The hardest thing Oscar ever did as a brother was to wait. For the first 2 years of George's recovery, Oscar thought he was helping his brother by filling in the words that he was struggling to say, by finishing his sentences. But what that really did was twofold. It caused George to feel like he didn't have the confidence or the ability to speak for himself, and that put him basically in the back seat of the car. It made it so that he was dependent upon George to finish communicating for him. And the second consequence of that is that he lost his confidence. If you don't have success in whatever it is you're working on, you lose your confidence and then suddenly you're not doing it anymore. So think about the person with aphasia's thought process as a train. The train is working hard to get up a grade. And then suddenly the train hits a penny that was put on the track and that engine car derails. Every time you offer a word or try to rush your person, you are derailing their train. It's like starting all over. And the more they start over, the less they are going to try. Do you see how this becomes a cycle, a self-fulfilling prophecy? So one word is never one word. My mentor called this the visual definition of aphasia. For those of you listening, I am holding up a pen. And think of the situation. I'm the clinician sitting in front of the person with aphasia, and I hold this object up and I say, "What is this?" Well, every lobe of the brain on the left side has to process in a certain sequence for that person to come up with the word. It starts first with recognition, and then it goes to a concept. And then you have to retrieve the word that represents that concept. And then you have to find the sounds for that word. And then you have to program your mouth muscles and your breathing to say that word. And then that's when you can speak out loud, pen. That's for a normal brain, a brain that hasn't been impacted by a stroke. And what we do know with the stroke, depending on the type of stroke it was or where in the brain a person was impacted, somewhere along that process, there is a broken track. And so the person with aphasia has to work extra hard to overcome that broken part in the track to be able to get out just a single word. So the thinking can break down at any level in this process. For some, they may not even recognize that the object I was holding up is a pen. Some may not be able to come up with the concept of what that pen is. When you look at a pen, our brain automatically thinks about, well, what do we do with it? What is it made out of? What does it look like? Do I hold it with my hand? Do I hold it with my teeth? Right? There's all these concepts, all these features we think about with every object that we know. So for some with aphasia, they may not fully have that concept of a pen. It's not all or nothing. It is definitely shades of gray. But let's say maybe they do have the concept. What if they can't pull up the word for it? That intuitively they know that they would hold it in their hand and, it leaves a mark on paper, and that's how we communicate via writing. They may have that concept, but not the word pen to go with it. Well, then their brain has to go to what we call the lexeme and pull the letters together. They have to pull the letters P-E-N, right? They may be visualizing those letters. And then they have to put those letters together where it turns into a unit, a word, pen. And then not only if they see the word P-E-N in their head and they know that that's a word, then they have to find the sounds. P, n. And then they have to blend those sounds together, pen. So now they've recognized what the object is. They've got the concept. They have put the concept. They've applied letters and a word, and they've got the sound in the word in their head, pen. But the next step is where they've got to program the muscles of their mouth to produce those sounds and blend them together. When you make a P, and I'd love for you to do this along with me, how do you say P? You put your lips together, you build up air pressure behind your lips, and it's a puff of air. And then what is an E? Well, your jaw is partway open, your tongue is somewhat relaxed, and then you let your voice come out to say And then how about the last sound? N. That's an N. Your tongue tip goes behind your top teeth with pressure, and you drop your soft palate and allow the airflow to go through your nose. So obviously all of these things have to happen in a very quick time, right? It's not 1 second. It's such a much smaller unit of that. So let's review. They have to recognize the pen. They have to get the concept. They have to get the word. Then they have to program their mouth, and then they actually have to execute and say pen. I took the time to explain this concept so that you can understand how difficult it is, what the person with aphasia, what their brain has to go through to express just a word. And if you jump in and interrupt that process, it will need to start over. They are not likely going to be able to pick up part way, because now they've had to shift their thinking for retrieving this information. Now they have to shift to listening to what you just said, putting meaning to what they just heard, and comparing what they just heard against what their thought concept was. Pretty crazy how language works. The brain is an amazing organ in that it can do all of these things very quickly. So another concept I want to share with you. Hold aside the processing of words. Here's another concept you need to understand. The person with aphasia, their brain is like a gas tank. What do I mean by that? If you think about your car and the gas tank, it only holds so many gallons. You might want to force in 1 more gallon when you're at the gas pump, but it's not going to work. But what do you know? That If it's a hot day, if you're running the air conditioner, if you're starting and stopping the car because you're in traffic, that you're going to have less fuel economy. But invariably, as you run that car, that gas is going to get used up and that gas tank level is going to decrease. It is no different than the person who has aphasia. When they wake up in the morning, their sleep cycle is what allows them to refill that gas tank. So they start the day, that gas tank is hopefully full because they've had a good night's sleep. But as they go through the day, depending on how much activity is going on, depending on the emotional load of what could happen that day, if there's lots of traveling or heat or noise, all of those things deplete that gas tank. So in the evening, most folks with aphasia are much more tired. They are low on gas. They are going to have less ability to express themselves or to process information. So if you also are interrupting them when they are trying to get something out, if you aren't waiting patiently for them to express what they have to say, it's going to deplete that gas tank. So obviously we've got a lot of complexity going on, and I'll bet you didn't really understand it. You probably saw these things happening, but didn't have a way of explaining it. So how does it work for you? Do you feel like you have the concept of how we have to retrieve words, how we process information, and also the concept of the gas tank? Because you have definitely seen that their gas tank gets empty as they go through the day. Needless to say, yours does as well. So what Oscar needed to learn is that he needed to apply the 3-second rule. First, there's some context I need to give you. When you're talking to your person with aphasia, you need to get in front of them. You need to be able to make eye contact, get their attention, and then ask your question, say what you're going to say, whatever the message is you need to get across. But it starts by you getting in front of them. And believe me, I understand this is going to be difficult to do because you're a busy person as well. Then also think about the environment around them. Is the TV on? Is the dog barking? Did the doorbell just ring? And are you trying to talk to them with all of this going on? They are not going to be able to process all of that information. Sometimes you have to think of aphasia as a person having a one-track mind. Not to be derogatory, but to be realistic. If there are things competing for their attention, your voice, the dog, the TV, the doorbell, they're going to default to the thing that's easiest. And I'll tell you that it's not going to be language. Language is not going to be the easiest thing to default to in that situation. So then you, the care partner, are going to think, they didn't hear me, they didn't understand me, they're mad at me, they don't agree with what I said or what I'm asking. And can you see how in that circumstance, if they don't react or if they pull back because you interrupted them, you could perceive something that is not there. You've heard the teenagers these days talk about resting bee face. I'm purposefully not saying the B word. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. You know, it's that face you have if you're just sitting, and this is for anybody, and you look like you're mad. So if somebody walks by and they see your face, they think, wow, she's having a really bad day, or man, she's really upset about something. But you know, sometimes when you're just sitting and thinking, you just have this look on your face. Well, care partners often misconstrue or misjudge what a face might mean by their person with aphasia. So I wanted to share that with you as one other aspect that you need to pay attention to when you're communicating. So back to George and Oscar. Oscar learned that 3-second rule was really important for George to have that time and space to finish his thought and his processing. So Oscar makes every effort to communicate with his brother when the TV's off. He will literally walk into the room, especially when the commercial's on, hit pause on the TV, sit down, and say, "Hey, George, let's talk about the plan for the weekend." Now George's attention has shifted, and now Oscar can ask his question or say what it is he's going to say. And then when George goes to give his response, Oscar just sits quietly, patiently. He's not trying to rush. He doesn't have an anxious look on his face. He is just very neutral, and that allows George to process his thought and to work to get his word out. George's issue is that he can often start the word, but it's hard for him to finish saying the word. He often can give enough of the word that Oscar knows what it is he's wanting to say, but Oscar gives him those 3 seconds to do his best to get the word out. And then Oscar will ask, "I think I know what you're saying. Can I say it?" So now he asks permission. And that allows George to still be in control and make the decision if he wants Oscar to step in. Does this make sense? So this interaction that I just laid out is a way of building trust. And it also helps George build his confidence that he matters, confidence that he is worthwhile, confidence that his brother is willing to wait and listen to him. And that is how we build relationships. So why do care partners interrupt? Part of the reason is we've gotten to a place in our society where it's always rush, rush, rush. We get uncomfortable with silence. So why is the 3-second rule the weirdest rule I can give you to consider for aphasia? It's because I want you to sit in the silence. It is uncomfortable, but that's okay. It's like a muscle that you have to build. You have to practice using the 3-second rule. So here's my question for you. Does silence make you uncomfortable? Is it more than just the silence that makes you uncomfortable when you're communicating with your person with aphasia? Is it because you're uncomfortable watching them struggle? I want you to reflect on this for your own self. Is it the silence that makes you uncomfortable, or is it watching them struggle? What would shift if you treated silence as a gift, not as a gap? So I encourage you to take this story, this episode to heart. I want you to try the 3-second rule with your person. But before you do that, get in front of them. Get their attention. Don't compete with the TV because the TV is going to win every time. Not that you have to put the dog out every time you go to ask a simple question of your person, but you, the care partner, need to be thinking about the environment too. Get in front of them. Don't compete with the TV. Ask a question and then pause. Count to 3 in your head. Notice what happens inside of your body. Notice how you pausing helps your person with aphasia. What does it do for you? What does it do for them? If you want more tools like this one, I recommend care partners that you download our Care Partner Compass. It's a free tool that allows you to see where your caregiving strengths are and where you might need more support. From there, it will give you more training, more insights that you can use effectively in your day-to-day interactions with your person with aphasia. Until next time, audience, thank you, thank you, thank you. Listen for life and take back what matters.